So when I talk about garden infrastructure, what do you guys think about? A trellis, right? That's probably the most common thing that people talk about. It's pretty much a lot of things that we grow requires some form of a vertical support. But with all the infrastructure that I have in place currently, all the infrastructure that I still want to put in place, all the stuff that's available, all the ideas and stuff out there, I thought, you know what, let's make a video dedicated to infrastructure. This is a pretty broad topic, so I'm not going to go into like a lot of detail with every single item. I just want to discuss sort of the most common things, some of the ideas that I'm very excited to explore going forward. Yeah, let's get into the video. So once again, I've made this video like really long. I think I've spoken for like half an hour just on infrastructure and I haven't really gone into detail. That's not really what I'm trying to achieve. I'm really trying to make these videos a bit shorter. Like, I keep talking for like half an hour and stuff. I can't believe it, man. I talk a lot apparently. So yeah, I'm gonna split this video up into two parts. So I'll release part 1 this weekend and then I'll try and release part 2 within the next week before the next video upload. Okay, so perimeter walls are pretty self-explanatory. They could be for privacy purposes, security purposes, or whatever. Basically, it's just keeping pets in, keeping wildlife out, keeping strangers out, or whatever. But I've made a video on placing or orienting and positioning your garden beds according to the sun. The biggest thing is if you have perimeter walls like what we have, just solid perimeter walls, that's definitely going to affect how you plan and organize your garden. So if you are planning on putting in some form of a perimeter wall, some sort of a fence, maybe it's for deer or whatever, or maybe it's a solid fence or perimeter wall like what we have for privacy and security and stuff, try and go for something that'll at least let some light through. Perhaps like a brick structure with like a palisade fence or a clearview fence or whatever. There's a lot of aesthetics that goes into a lot of cost implications. Again, this is so broad, really. What if you can try and have something that'll let light through, then at least you won't have the same issue as me. I mean, it's now 9:30 in the morning. This garden bed is already in the shade. It's going to be in the shade for the rest of the day. It's a bit of a problem, so this entire stretch of my yard is unusable in the winter. In the summer it's pretty good, but in the winter it's unusable. So if you can try and prevent that through having a not permeable but a perimeter wall that at least lets light in, then this problem will at least be alleviated somehow. But again, there's a lot of factors that goes into this. If you can't, then unfortunately you can't. Then at least you'll want, which will be the next thing that we'll be talking about, is some form of a vertical support so you can utilize that space. Okay, so vertical support, there's a lot. And a lot of people really talk about mainly like trellises. Sometimes you'll see people talk about like teepees and stuff. So just quickly touching on it, vertical support, all it is a way that you can grow vertically, self-explanatory, but in most of the contexts, people talk about vertical support with regards to anything that vines, anything that climbs. But there are a few other ways, which I'm going to touch on just now. But I mean, like you can see here, so I've got an nasturtium here that's climbing up this sort of windmill looking trellis. I have climbing beans that I'll show you just now. I've got a few problems there, climbing on these pallets. So let's quickly show you what's going on here and then I'll discuss what I'm really excited to discuss. Okay, so what I did, right? I actually had these pellets here when I was trying to grow some gem squash, but I left them in place so that I could then try and have a wall of peas. So what I didn't really think about is the height to which the peas would grow. I forgot that they would grow so tall. When I was growing some peas a little bit early in the summer, I actually literally just had them growing here, and then they eventually climbed into the tree. I forgot I had the tree here, or should I say I forgot the effect that the tree had on the ability of the peas to climb up. So I had to do this like little makeshift structure here. It's so flimsy it might actually just fall over. So again, this is why I'm really doing this video, to talk about the infrastructure so that you guys don't make the same mistakes as me. This infrastructure is too low. It provides support for the beans, which is good, but it's not really effective. They can't really climb or latch onto anything. I have to make sure that I'm diligent enough to feed them through the top structures, and then when they run out of space, then they just flop over. Like, so you can see how this guy is sort of falling over here. You can see how those guys are falling over there. So all I did is I tried to extend this support up and use just a bit of cotton twine to keep them up. But yeah, it's flimsy. I don't see this really lasting. This is not a plan. If I had something proper from the get-go, that would have been much more effective. So one thing that I want to try and build, still using pellets, I want to raise them off the ground. I'll have like two maybe Y16 rebars going into the soil, lift this up a little bit so it's off the soil, so you don't have any issues with termites or anything climbing up. Then I'll have two pallets essentially then stacked on top of each other. What I'll potentially do is have maybe like a 2 post support with the pallet in between, because then I can wrap some twine around the whole thing so that I don't have to worry about them not getting fed through on time through these sort of struts. That might be a way to go, but this is not really what you want. You actually want to have this in place beforehand, because it's a challenge. It's a big challenge now. So another form of vertical support, it's still sort of like a trellis, but this is essentially not really a Florida weave. I can't remember what they call it, but I built this just to try and grow my tomatoes up. It would be a single vining system with these cotton twines essentially wrapped around the stems, then they would grow up towards the top support. This is also a piece of vertical support that you guys could use. Alternatively, stakes like this also works to relative success. The problem with this is you need to constantly tie them around, and if, like what I have, if they're not actually placed into the ground properly, then yeah, they could potentially fall over or just grow a little bit strange. So something else I had is this little cucumber trellis. Now it's just a nasturtium trellis really, to be honest, but even something simple like this is still quite effective as a vertical support. It allows whatever to climb over, to grow, and then you have this like little nookie to actually grow other stuff in, or just as like a little doghouse if you have a dog. That's kind of cool too, but just another application. I like the idea of green walls, right? So a green wall is not really a type of vertical support, just a way that you grow and organize your plants in a vertical fashion. Typically what you would see is they're normally like fabric bags, but you do also get like hard plastic structures that you can mount onto a wall. It's typically like a series of very small containers that's just like arranged in a grid fashion. Hang it somewhere, you plant very small things in it, and then over time it'll grow in and you'll have a green wall. Well, what I want to try and do, right, so I've mentioned the whole thing with these pallets, right? What I want to try and do is I want to build essentially I'll have like almost like a hydroponic setup, but not really. So you'll have these like 5 levels of gutters, right, in between 2 posts. Now what there will be is each of these gutters will be between 200 and 300 mil steep and wide. Then what I can do is I can plant things in this like a green wall, but because there's more soil, I can grow bigger things, right? I can grow things that will give me more production. So imagine this, right? Like a wall of strawberries, a wall of beans, right? A wall of lettuce, a wall of spring onions or whatever, dude. I just like that idea. I like it so much. So there's a few things about this. Being a piece of infrastructure, it's in place the whole time. You don't have to worry about shifting stuff around. Being everything arranged in a vertical fashion and not directly against the wall like a traditional green wall, you then promote better airflow through it. And because everything is vertical, everything has this like own dedicated spot for growing, so it has better light penetration through the canopy instead of everything being sprawling around on the ground. And then especially like with bush beans, right? So with bush beans, they grow very small actually, and they're very lanky. The problem is then trying to harvest them in the ground, and they get eaten by ants and some beetles and stuff. And like, especially like some of my places, I had like a lot of aphids, right? Because of ants, because the ants farm aphids, and that's a bit of an issue. But by having them all growing vertically, I can then more easily inspect my crop for insect pressure. And having a hard infrastructure in place, I can better protect this stuff, right? It'll be so much easier for me to take like an insect netting or a shade cloth or something and wrap it over there. I really like this idea. Also, if you have an injury like what I had last year, or potentially like if you're a little bit more elderly, or if you have some issues with your back, or maybe you're just tired, I don't know, bro. It's going to be so much easier to harvest, so much easier to inspect, so much easier to plant, so much easier to sort out. Dude, I just like the idea. And the aesthetic, like I said, just imagine, just like your height, right? Whatever height you are, just imagine your height wall. It's built out of nice wood. It's varnished nicely or stained nicely. It's in a nice spot in your garden that potentially you can't normally cultivate, either because you have subsoil services running, or the soil isn't really cultivatable. Maybe it's contaminated, or maybe you have surface beds or stuff. You know, you got this nice green wall, strawberries hanging over. Dude, I just love the idea. I really want to build this. I hope you guys can tell. And it's definitely something that I'm going to be doing for spring of this year. So vertical support, I think that's covered. Let's now talk about water management. Okay, so water management, I'm breaking this up into 3 sections, right? The first one is water harvesting and storage. Self-explanatory. But essentially all you have is you have some form of a reservoir that is connected to a pipe, or has, like what I have here is like a self-made chute, right? Above this is where there used to be a downpipe. I have a hole in my gutter, so I'm harvesting water using this chute, and then it just pours into this black bin here, right? But you essentially just have a reservoir, some way to capture water, either rainwater or dew. And if you have like a very large roof or something, then you're going to get a lot of water, so preferably you'll have a larger reservoir. This is essentially one watering on my garden. If I'm being a little bit sparingly, if I'm using it a bit more sparingly, I can get 2 watering sessions out of this. This is like a 200, maybe a 150 litre container. It's not much. It helps. It's not much. Ultimately, you would want something that's large enough that you can harvest a lot of water, have a very large water reservoir if you just want to use it for your garden. But if you want to use it maybe for some household stuff, maybe you even want to try and connect it to like an automatic irrigation system, try and go for a nice large container. But then you would also want to ensure that you're able to harvest very effectively. This thing fills up like with a proper rainstorm, or not even a storm, just a proper rain sesh. This thing fills up within 10 minutes. Again, it's not very big, but if you're able to harvest as much water as possible, if you have a nice large roof, nice large structure, it's connected to some gutters and downpipes going to a very large reservoir, man, you can really sort your garden out nicely during the dry months or anything. And the benefit of having that water reservoir is if there's any issues with the local water supply, maybe they're doing maintenance or whatever and everything gets shut off, we've actually had that recently, then at least you know that your garden at least will have water. And again, if it's a large enough reservoir, then you have water for your household. So it helps. It really helps. Okay, so then this brings me to the next point, which is then irrigation. So potentially you have a reservoir that you have, or you just have an outdoor tap. One of the very easiest ways to sort out the water supply in your garden is having an irrigation system. Either you turn the tap on manually, or you have it maybe connected up to a timer, and then it'll go off all the time. Essentially what all an irrigation system is you have a main line that's running from a point where you get water from, like a tap or something, maybe it's in your kitchen or whatever, or an external tap. It runs the length of your yard, your garden beds, and then you have branching pipes going to wherever you need that water. So the main line just supplies water to your garden, right? The branching pipes then receives that water and takes it to wherever you need in your yard. And this is really where the flexibility comes in. The branching pipes, because the main line is essentially going to be the same regardless of what you do. The branching pipes could be hard pipes that have spray nozzles on them. The branch pipes could be little pipes that's mounted onto stakes with like a little sprinkler or something on them. The branch pipes could be a form of drip tape or a drip line. So the branching lines, really, that's where your flexibility comes into for you to personalize your garden, to really hone in on the type of irrigation system that you want. But essentially all it comes down to is having a point of water and dispersing it evenly across your yard, whether it's manually or through a timer and it's all automated or whatever. But an irrigation system can really be useful. And if you have like a water harvesting system ready and you have that irrigation system connected to that harvesting tank, and it's just the potential to really sort out your yard very easily, very effectively. I think it's just such a good idea. Okay, so there is a problem with a water irrigation system, even just like water storage. If you don't have money or you don't really have cash to spare, it's a bit of a challenge. It's not like you're just going to get the stuff for free, so it's a bit of an issue. So one thing that I'm really exploring and something that I'm very, very excited to explore and implement in my garden, it's like water reticulation in a passive manner. So I've mentioned before that I have a channel. Let me show you guys. So I've mentioned before that I have a channel that comes through this section of my yard. This is the furthest part to my yard that a hose pipe doesn't normally reach. I also had a lot of issues with water runoff. So what I've done is I've dug a trench through here, through the length of this soil. So any water runoff coming from here, coming from the top here, it actually just gets then channeled. Obviously nothing happens here, let's just hose wherever it wants to. But the nice thing is with this, right, you can passively redirect water to wherever you need in a garden. You can do it through the use of swales if you have the space and the contours for it, or alternatively if you just have a sloped piece of land like what I do and it's just pretty gradual, just have like a V trench. All I have here is a simple trench that I've cut a V shape into and I've filled it up with some logs and stuff. So all that happens is it just channels water nice and effectively to wherever I want it. Now there's a few nice applications that you can do with this. You can try and set it up to a French drain to actually clean up the water, to maybe take it to like your greens and stuff that you don't really want contaminants on the leaves because you're eating the actual leaves and stuff. But if you're then just irrigating things that produce fruit like tomatoes and stuff, it's not really an issue and you don't really need a French drain style. But if you have a lot of water and you need to break up the flow, putting in something in this drain, this channel, really is a benefit, because if there's a lot of water and it's flowing very quickly, it's not really going to seep into the soil. So then you want to slow that flow of water down. You can do it through the use of logs or rocks or anything really, just to offer resistance to that water, to slow the flow of water down so it can actually penetrate and seep into the soil. So another application with this, but it's not a channel, you create essentially a rain garden. So if you have, it's kind of difficult to see, but this land is sloped, right? So there's a lot of water runoff. If I had a lot of gravel, right, I could lay the gravel down here so that all the water would actually stop and slow down in this area and seep more effectively into this area. I could then plant either more thirsty crops around here or anything like that. I could even be more creative and connect it up to, or design it as a rain garden. So I would then maybe dig like a shallow bowl, put in a whole bunch of rocks and stuff, and then I'll plant water or drought hardy crops in there that doesn't require a lot of water, but then when it rains, that area fills up, soaks in very nicely, and with their maybe deep roots or whatever, they're able to harvest whatever water is there. Again, it's just another way to control the flow of water. So when I talk about water reticulation, yes, technically water reticulation is like through pipes and stuff, but in a passive manner, I think it really can help your garden, because yeah, again, it can be free, it can cost money depending on how you do it, but I think there's just a lot of potential for passive water reticulation ideas out there, and that's something that I'm really excited to explore and implement in the yard. So yeah, so that's pretty much all the infrastructure that I wanted to discuss. It is a little lizard. Cool. Yeah, so that's on. So that's pretty much the video. I don't really know what else I want to discuss, but at the end of the day, infrastructure can be as cheap as you want it to be. It can be really expensive if you really want it to be. There's a lot of options available, but all that infrastructure needs to really achieve is to help you grow. If it doesn't do that, then it's more of an aesthetic thing. So really you need to weigh up what do you want your problem to do, what do you want it to look like, and then you can weigh up the cost versus benefits. Are you going to put money into infrastructure? You're going to try and procure stuff for free or for very cheap? Maybe go to like a few yard sales, or I don't know, it really comes out down to what you want to try and achieve. But there's so many different types of infrastructure. It can be a little bit overwhelming, but you don't have to get everything in place right now to start growing. You can expand as the time goes on. You can start with maybe a bit of vertical support and then expand from there. I mean, I don't even have irrigation systems. I don't have water storage tanks. I've been doing this for almost 2 years now. So again, it's something that'll build up over time. You'll gain more experience. You'll sort of figure out what you want, what layout works for you. So that's really it for infrastructure. I don't really know what I'm going to discuss in the next video. I'll put up it on the bottom like I normally do. But I hope you guys learned something. I hope this was informative, at least entertaining if it wasn't. But yeah, if you guys like hearing me ramble on about random gardening stuff, I recommend you check out my playlist of other videos that I've done.